This presentation, we will reflect on how decision analysis can be used to support drug development. What are some of the key considerations for decision analysis, i.e., when would you need to use decision analysis? There are several methods by which decision analysis can be applied within drug development. These include petitioning to investors for funding, petitioning to senior management for resources, as well as committees where you present research and development data. And collectively, they decide how to allocate resources to current versus a set of alternate projects. And there are basically three outcomes for this kind of decision analysis. One is to identify the projects to advance. Some might be to delay a project or otherwise fully terminate. And in that regard, decision makers have to absorb a complex information stream. They have to synthesize an overall program picture, and they have to choose alternate development paths based on current information. One of the challenges in drug development is the complexity of information, and oftentimes there is sometimes ambiguity as well as imperfect information to contend with. And some of the issues to think about where decision analysis could be applied is understanding how advocacy plays out or any inherent bias within the decision-making people. And one of the key aspects of decision analytic tools is to investigate its development, benchmarking, and ensuring that decision analysis process and tools are consistent with organizational applications. There are several decision paradigms to consider. One is, what are those decisions? It could be go, wait, or kill, and that is tied to their decision criteria or a go, no-go decision, as they call it in drug development. Identifying the criteria driving those decisions, whether it's a go, wait, or kill, for certain parameters such as efficacy, safety, biology, or proof of concept or probability of success within drug development. And some of the outcomes driving the criteria could be the type of target the organization is pursuing, the specificity of the compound, and potential effects related to the compound. So for example, if you're developing an anti-diabetic, you would be interested in A1C reduction. And generalization applying across compounds, risk of serious AE or mechanism-based AE. Another novel concept which is tied to drug development applications for decision analytic tools is the concept of clinical utility index. It's part of the multi-attribute utility function. It is calculated with an additive utility function and assessed with swing weighting. It depends upon drug attributes. It depends upon correspondence to the overall importance weight of the ith attribute, as well as the utility function for that attribute. Enabling CUI analysis or clinical utility analysis consists of constructs and weighting are the two critical components of such an analysis. As you can see on your right-hand side, you have a table, and the table consists of attributes, attribute weight, response level, and response utility. So that for sequence of different attributes, you could have a weighting function, and you would have a response function and a response utility. Quite simply, this depends upon the graph shown on the left-hand side that relates utility scores as a function of exposure units. And what it shows is that there are certain targets in terms of efficacy shown in green, safety shown in orange, and the combined utility shown in blue. And if the overall goal is to maximize patient benefit, you have three subcomponents. You want to maximize efficacy, minimize safety risk, maximize tolerability and ease of use. And within those subcomponents, you have different endpoints, both for efficacy, safety, and ease of use. Now, this is a two attribute example showing indifference curves and competitive effects. On the both of the graphs, you see safety on the y-axis and efficacy on the x-axis. You have utility scores shown in both graphs, but the curve on the right shows the relationship of your molecule to competition, whether your molecule has blockbuster potential, whether it could be a me too with no market share. So such graphs can help you relate safety and efficacy on a curve that provides a reference point to competition, and therefore you can use that to maximize your market differentiation of the product. Now, exposure response based CUI is something that has gained traction in the recent 5 to 10 years. And the goal of this exposure response based CUI is to characterize the dose and or exposure response of efficacy and safety endpoints, but other steps remain the same, which is identifying the attributes, assigning a weight to each attribute, determining the utility function, use of the appropriate cutoff or trade-off values, as well as to obtain overall CUI with uncertainty and sensitivity analysis. So all those steps remain the same with the exception of characterizing the dose or exposure response of efficacy and safety. This table shows the key attributes, the minimum product profile, or the utility is equal to 0, target product profile, opportunistic product profile, and the appropriate weight. So as you can see, under different scenarios, you have different utility scores, and that allows the decision maker to make the right choice under uncertainty. Now, this is what it shows is that when you have CUI distribution as an expected utility as a function of dose, you have a number of these curves where you can decide whether you want an optimistic scenario or a worst case scenario. In profile B, you see the probability of reaching product profile CUIs under 3 scenarios, minimum, target, and optimistic. And based on that, your dose would be different. A dose of about 400 milligram appears to meet the requirement of progression to the next step. Now, there are some meaningful practical limitations to CUI implementation, and this is also an important consideration to take into account. One is to ensure reasonable stakeholder input into weighting. This is a very critical step because different stakeholders may select a different weight for the same attribute, especially for safety and or efficacy. Different stakeholder groups may select a different weight for the same attribute, and this could be patients versus prescribers or payers versus regulators. The other issue is socializing the process of CUI within decision makers, educating decision makers. Aspects of transparency around assumptions being used for the weighting distributions are made clear and easily understood. The advantages are several. It prioritizes compound candidates from a resourcing perspective, so you can use decision making to leverage model-informed drug development. Now, you can also use decision choices under uncertainty when you have a target that's not validated, and how do you triage safety and efficacy under more mathematical operational characteristics. That's something that can be used. This is also applicable in pharmaceutical due diligence. Sometimes when you're in licensing opportunities, sometimes they're complex, and one can use portfolio tools to help prioritizing of these assets. The criteria for due diligence are different, but similar, which could include efficacy, safety, feasibility of manufacturing, regulatory path success, clinical pharmacology, patent life, etc. So in summary, use of decision analysis increases our confidence in targets, increases our confidence in the decision-making process in drugs, increases our confidence in the chosen biomarker endpoints, increases our confidence in regulatory decisions, but also validates using sensitivity analysis to learn and confirm program paradigm within drug development process. Thank you for your attention.